I am recording.
We're live.
Hello.
Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
And today we have a very special episode. We have the 1971 film A Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
Nathan, what is your history with A Clockwork Orange?
Oh, this is one of my favorites. I watched this when I was 12 years old. I'm not going to pretend I understood it all when I was 12 years old, but there's something about the way it looks, the music, the way they talk, that it was immediately, I don't know, how would you say? It just drew me in. I was immediately enthralled by the weirdness of this movie.
It caught your rebellious nature.
Yeah, it was kind of that, and it was one of those things like, what is this? I mean, I knew Stanley Kubrick from 2001, which, because I was like sci-fi things, and then this really started to draw me into the world of Kubrick. Like, oh, these, he makes movies like this, which is interesting. Somebody pointed out that Wes Anderson films have the same color balance that this film does, the way they look. Yeah. And it's like, so every Wes Anderson film is a Clockwork Orange. It's like, I don't know if that's true, but I like it. It's funny.
Well, yeah, it's like all primary colors. There's no like in between. It's very stark and contrasty. Yeah. Which, especially for the film stock from the 70s, this looked very futuristic.
Oh yeah.
Purely because of the design.
And I really like the soundtrack because for some reason that whole hooked on classics from the 70s passed through a synthesizer, never made contact with me until I saw this soundtrack, where it was that, but it was scary and weird and cool. And so I actually have the original disc. I was going to dig it out I have the original Wendy Carlos soundtrack for everything used in the movie I have. And I still listen to it occasionally on a playlist when I'm in one of those moods. So it's not just the Beethoven ran through the synthesizer, it's the whole soundtrack. And I have the intro from The Shining too, which she also did. That famous dun, dun. Yeah. Okay, that was her too. Because she was like some kind of genius with synthesizers and passing things through filters and making things that you recognize sound otherworldly.
Yeah.
Which was cool in the 70s and 80s. Now you can do that on any home computer. But back then it required you have to go get things and understand electricity and stuff. Not so much now.
You could almost die making this work.
Yeah. Back then, it required refrigeration techs to come and cool stuff down. So yeah, no, I have a long history with this movie. Of course, I was secretly watching this. I had a secret VHS cassette of this because Mom and Dad would not be happy. Your 12-year-old son was watching A Clockwork Orange every summer vacation. It's Clockwork Orange week.
I think this is the first time I'll say this. First time I watched the movie. I've seen this movie a bunch of times. This is the first time oh wait, I've never really paid attention to this movie. I was just caught by the visuals and the craziness of it. This is the first time where it's oh, there's this whole political ramifications and stuff going on, and the first part of the movie that you remember the most is only 10 minutes long, and it's really not. What you remember most about the movie isn't that long.
Yeah. No, yeah, this is probably, I've watched Blade Runner more than this. This probably has got to be in the top 5 of my most viewed movies. I didn't even watch it for the podcast because it's I watched it 6 months ago. So it's I know this in and out. So instead of having secret porno tapes, I had secret Clockwork Orange tapes. Secret Stanley, and also had secret porno tapes.
Well, which to parents at that time would have been the same thing. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, Clockwork Orange came out in America in full release on February 2nd, 1972. So I mentioned it as being 71. It came out in limited release, all over around then, but didn't get a full release in the U.S. till 72, which is common, especially if you're trying to get award seasons for your movies. You usually kind of do a limited release in L.A. and New York around December, November, and then you do your full release in February or January.
Oh, okay.
So of course, director is Stanley Kubrick. One of the greatest to ever do it. So,
oh yeah.
This is his follow-up to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, it's a weird like corner to turn.
I mean, there's kind of like it's supposed to be a futuristic movie, and he's using classical music again, so there is like some commonality between them.
Oh
But
yeah,
this,
yeah.
but this is more about the social aspect of it and stuff. Oh, man. Every time I get the cinematographer, I forget to like look up what else they did. John Alcott, longtime cinematographer with Stanley Kubrick, which I don't know if that means like we hired him and then Stanley Kubrick did all the cinematography, or if he was an essential part to it. But he did, he did 2001: A Space Odyssey. He did Barry Lyndon. I think he did The Shining. So he just did a lot of Kubrick stuff.
The Beastmaster, Fort Apache, The Bronx.
Never seen that.
Oh, that's that Paul Newman movie.
Greystoke, that like Tarzan movie from the 80s.
Yeah, that looked cool. It was a terrible movie. It looked great.
But yeah, he's mostly just a Kubrick guy. Has to be, yeah, he's got to be British, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ilsworth, England. So okay.
Yeah, everything Stanley Kubrick is British, except Stanley Kubrick, who's from New York.
Stanley Kubrick, an eccentric American who just loves to work with British crews for all his movies. Written by Stanley Kubrick as the adapted screenplay based on a novel by Anthony Burgess, which yes. Nathan will know more about that than I do. So
that's pretty.
Did you see the movie before you read the book, or
no? I watched the movie first and then read the book.
Okay.
Because I didn't know. Anthony Burgess is kind of like outside my wheelhouse for reading, because he's kind of like if J.R.R. Tolkien was into like weird sci-fi and social commentary, and so because he like made up his own languages and a lot of things. He did this too. It's not as in the movie. It comes across as Cockney slang, but it's actually a combination of Russian and Cockney slang. But in the book, it's like crazy. It's the way they manipulate language and words.
It's like lyrical. It's almost like a different language, but that's kind of the fun of it. It's almost like that. It's almost like in the way you enjoy Shakespeare now. Like, I don't know if Shakespeare was writing the way people talked back then, but the way it sounds now, it's like, I don't know what he's talking about, but it sounds cool. That's how this comes across. Like, I don't know what they're talking about, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, it's lyrical language, but you understand, even if you don't get it all, it's like you understand what they're saying. It's not like where you got to have like subtitles on, like, huh?
Yeah.
Or this is like, oh, you get what's going on.
Well, sometimes here it's like I don't know what horror show means, because horror show seems to be both mean good and bad.
Yeah. Real horror show. With Psychopath, that's good. It's like, yeah, it's something horrible, like when he would listen to Beethoven and it was just people being murdered and torn apart. And it was in his mind, it was like that would be real horror show because he is a psychopath. It's Alex DeLarge. And so that's but Droog is a Russian. That's actually the word, and it means like friend or buddy in Russian. But it's said with an English accent, and it's kind of done in a Cockney way. So it's like you don't know that that's Russian, but it is. And I forget why it's Russian and Cockney stuff all mixed together. It had something to do with what was going on in the future of that book, which is a little more stated.
Is that just some Orwell influence or something like that?
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Well, I saw Anthony Burgess wrote a book called 1985, so I figured he has some loose connection with Orwell. So.
Well, yeah, like I said, Anthony Burgess is like a sci-fi guy who's like, it's more in the tradition of like Brave New World type kind of dystopian weird novels. And Clockwork Orange was not his most popular novel, not even his top 20, until they made a movie out of it. And then it's something like people go back and study, but yeah. So it's but yeah, it's a little different. Because like the whole thing, like, what is a Clockwork Orange? And it's like, well, that's something he said he overheard in a pub before he wrote the book, saying, well, it's something that looks like an orange and tastes like it's an orange, but it's a mechanical thing. It's an automaton. It has no real orange qualities to it. And so he extrapolated that into like failing society and how we're going to make people fake good. And so, yeah, but yeah, that's the book.
Yeah,
it's a great accompaniment to the movie because when Stanley, because Anthony Burgess wrote a screenplay, Stanley Kubrick didn't like it. He wrote his own screenplay based on the book, and basically, unlike The Shining, like included a lot of the stuff from the book.
Well, I'm not sure. You might have different trivia. So I listened to the book on tape, and it was a recent. Well, it was like 2016 production of it, so it had some extras on it, like a forward from the author, and then like a reading from Anthony Burgess himself at the end of it, of A Clockwork Orange. And so the American version of A Clockwork Orange doesn't have the last chapter.
Oh, the post, what happened to Alex later in life, yeah.
Which apparently that was the version Stanley Kubrick read, and that's the version he made for the movie.
Which actually was great.
Yeah.
For the movie.
Which seems like, weird that I don't know. I guess the 70s has been really fucked up that like Stanley, that people that like that's a what do you call that? A publishing house looked at the book and went, not bleak enough for America. You need to end here where it's the bleakest.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, like, I only know this from like studying, just like through film and books, especially like the late 60s and early 70s. Like, America was over. Like we're at it's the end of history. We're done. It's like Soylent Green's coming out soon. This is out. This is like, it's in the bleak. It's the bleakest time for like science fiction movies, science fiction novels. The 70s was like, yep, it's the end of America. It's done. We're gonna run out of food. We're gonna overpopulate the world. We're gonna I forget what else there was. The world was always ending for America. Every 10 years, America's gonna die somehow. We're in one of those phases right now. It's 2023, and we're going to burn alive, diseases, or Chinese are going to take over, or all three of those things are going to happen to us. But yeah, at this time, this was like you had the rising crime rates and stuff, and that's kind of what this was written as a it's like, oh, well, this is where we're going. Just this completely dystopian, violent society where teenagers run amok and commit really hardcore crimes. And just sit around and drink chemicals so they can do more of it. So, yeah. So that was the late 60s through the 70s and early 80s was a bleak time. And then once Reagan got elected, it's like, the party's back. We're fine. And that lasted really from the mid 80s to 9/11. And then ever since then, we've been in some kind of weird interstitial phase where something's going to kill us. Moon rocks, the devil, aliens, who knows?
But anyway, so yeah, the last chapter is like this hopeful chapter where basically Alex grows up. Yeah. It's like, I guess I've matured and I don't want to rape and kill everybody.
Yeah. I just had to get a few murders under my belt. And now it's all well, right as rain.
The cast is Malcolm McDowell and a bunch of people I don't know and never seen again.
And Patrick mostly dead.
Okay. Patrick McGee and Michael Bates, no idea who they are.
Oh, Michael Bates was the guy who played the guard.
Oh, okay, like the Hitler guy, like the British Hitler guy. Okay,
the real stick up your ass British people. That was kind of like a caricature of British. He was okay. So we had that Full Metal Jacket. We had R. Lee Ermey. Okay, this was basically Britain's R. Lee Ermey.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this guy politically was actually a hardcore right winger too. He had a whole thing because he did a lot of British TV, and he was so politically what's her name? Thatcher was not right wing enough for this guy. He would take on like the whole cast of whatever TV show he was on about just calling them a bunch of communists. And he died about 6 years after this film came out. So, but yeah, I call this Britain's R. Lee Ermey. R. Lee Ermey was much scarier than this guy, but this guy was like your classic oh, this is why, this is why the British run everything type.
I mean, he's the guy everybody wants to be, like, presumably, or he's the guy rich people want other people to be, and nobody wants to be that guy.
Yeah. It's like, I love the system, and all my value comes from following all these rules, because we can't go wrong if we follow the rules. Remember, the small mind is a tidy mind.
So in Act 1, we start. There's just a red screen with ominous chords.
Yep.
Some dirty synth music.
I'd like to play some for you, but we can't.
I was trying to learn the chords for it, but they're kind of weird, and I couldn't.
Oh no, the lady that did this is a genius. Like, it's very hard to do what she does.
I mean, I could kind of play it, but like,
yeah.
The thing was, I couldn't find a synth setting on here that was dirty and weird enough for what that's going on here. I got kind of close, but I probably need to do a mix. But anyways, we get Malcolm McDowell, he plays Alex. Or what's his full? You know his full name. What's his
Alex
full name?
DeLarge.
Alex DeLarge. Okay.
Yeah.
He's just staring into the camera. It's breaking the rules already. The one thing you're not supposed to do as an actor: don't look at the camera.
No.
According
to Malcolm McDowell, not a lot of direction from Stanley Kubrick.
Huh. Okay.
There was none of this like 100 takes or whatever.
Huh. Okay.
Because everyone was kind of being so wild. Like, they were given a rough outline of what the characters were supposed to be and what the book was, but they were kind of told, like, yeah, go hard, like, eat the set, like, okay. And it almost seemed to vaguely disturb Stanley Kubrick, but also he was, because you know how he gets disturbed if actors get way too famous for, like, I can't make eye contact with our Army. He's too disturbed to be a human being. He basically was like that with a lot of the people in this cast, including Malcolm McDowell. So Malcolm McDowell was left at the end of the day like, I hope he likes what I'm doing, because he's not complaining. But yeah,
Alex has like an eyelash extension on just his left eye, and he's got like a bowler cap on. They got like this white button-up shirt with like kind of like gray suspenders, and they have these weird like nut cups like go on the outside of
called
their
a cod piece. That was a style thing from like the Middle Ages to like the 17th century. I think, or something. Yeah.
And it just he's just staring at the camera. The camera's just backing out, revealing all of like these weird naked lady tables and stuff like that. They're all interconnected, and they're the whole gang, because we got they're mentioned in the book, but here the only people that talk is George and Dim. I don't know who the fourth guy is. I can't remember.
Is it Pete?
Yeah, I guess. But he almost does. He has no lines in the movie, but he just kind of does stuff. And there's like a voiceover from Alex, and he's basically talking about how like the milk bar couldn't get a liquor license, so they sell this milk that's like mixed with drugs, which I don't know why that's legal, but everybody's here to get milk with drugs. It's not just them. It's a mix of the dirtiest people and the richest people all at this milk bar.
Yeah, it's the Korova Milk Bar. You can get Milk Plus, Drincrom, Synthamesk. I believe in the book they describe what some of those drugs do. Like some of them,
they talk about like you stare at your like pinky and it comes alive and stuff like that, and he basically describes a drug trip as like air and bits of your body coming to life to frighten you, and like how you have to like crawl through like stuff. Like he's basically just describing a drug trip in a fun way. So
yeah. Yeah, and you're doing this, but you're doing this so you can go out and commit the most heinous, violent act.
Yeah, here's the first mention of a bit of the ultra violence, which is one of the which I'm guessing this has to be the first place to claim that term, ultra violence.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's been around forever, but yeah, I think this is what put it into the cultural zeitgeist.
Okay.
Ultra violence that had to come.
Then we cut to there's like a drunk vagrant who's just singing under a bridge, minding his own business. The gang come up and they kind of applaud the singing, and then they just start assaulting the man.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I remember in the book, it's kind of weird because they do this in the book too, but they talk about like when they're waiting at like a train station and like Dim is buying chocolates for the poor. I'm like, that's never represented in the movie. I was like, that would be way more interesting though. It's like these guys beat the fuck out of people and rape them, but then like they're kind to poor people, but they're not even kind to poor people, so it doesn't. So they're just they're just forces of nature.
Yeah. I mean, they don't really know. I mean, that's the thing is like one of the big overarching themes in the book, and but I'm just going to talk about the movie. The book's like cool, read it, but in the movie especially, it is like free will for and it's like just like do these kids have free will? Can they are they making these choices, or is this society left them with nothing but these choices? Can we pause for like 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, I'll be right back.
Da-da-da, da-da-da. Forgot I made a standby screen, so I went to the standby screen.
All right.
So
yeah, basically like, this movie is like, there's a lot of it is like about free will and what choices these people have and what they're choosing to do and the kind of society they live in, which is, in the movie, it's artistically hinted at that it's definitely like a world in decline.
Yeah. Well, yeah, nobody looks healthy.
No, everyone looks a little washed out.
Then we cut to, I believe it's Beethoven playing, which I don't know all the music cues in there. I know Beethoven's a big thing. Good old Ludwig van.
Ludwig van, yep. Not to be confused with Amadeus, which I did last week.
Yeah, old piano people, Yeah. They're in like a derelict casino where another gang is just sexually assaulting a woman because that's just what gangs do. So,
this was the scene, one of the first things filmed. And remember, I was talking about how Malcolm McDowell said he wasn't getting a lot of input from Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
But when he walked in and saw that scene, he just smiled really big. And Stanley Kubrick was like, "That's your character right there. The guy who smiles at this. Like, this is like, oh, this is exciting and cool."
Yeah, Alex and his droogs show up to fight the gang. And
actually called the derelict casino, too. What Alex says. It's like Billy Boy and his toughs were in the derelict casino having their way with some gavachka or something.
Well, of course, it seems like they're saving the woman, but them stopping the rape is not their intention.
Yeah.
Like, if they had a fifth guy, if they could fight four guys and one guy could continue raping, they would have let that happen. They don't care. So,
yeah.
So a big fight breaks out, and they basically got all the stuntmen that the England can muster together and hit chairs over their head and hit them with broken panes of windows. I guess it's a pretty good fight for a Stanley Kubrick movie.
It's a crazy, weird. It's over the top.
So the droogs beat down the Billy Boy and his gang. So like None of them are being defeated, but they just stop them all. And then suddenly the Droogs are driving a stolen car, a Durango 95.
Yes.
Which in 1995, did they have a Dodge Durango?
I think they did, yeah, but it was like an SUV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, would Dodge appreciate the irony of that, or they were not even thinking of it?
Probably not. I don't think, because that car was actually a 1970 Adams Probe 16. There was only 3 of them made. One of them was used in the filming of this movie. It was a car that was designed to explore the edges of styling and how extreme you could make it.
Yeah, it looked cool for what it was, but also like it's mostly on like it looks like it's mostly on a rear projection screen. But do they actually drive it a lot in the movie, or just
No, just down the one
okay?
At night when they go out to the countryside and play hogs of the road with their fellow travelers of the night.
Yeah, they run a bunch of people off the road.
And they drive under a semi.
They pull up to it just literally says home outside.
Yes.
It's some sort of modern architecture / or castle. I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe it's converted castle into modern architecture. Stuff they have in England. England stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't look at it. Maybe they filmed this in like Czechoslovakia or something.
No, this was all filmed in the greater London area.
Okay.
Because his hotel, which was, or his hotel, where he lived, his apartment, Municipal Flat Block 18A, Linear North, was actually the Tavy Bridge Center, which was like more of I forget what, it was kind of a combination shopping government office building. And then at night, they just came in and threw a bunch of trash all over the place. It's been demolished since then. And the interior where they had all the, artwork on the walls and stuff, that was at a college that they just filmed at night, and they put up the walls as a set.
Huh.
And then I forget where they attacked the tramp was it's like a subway underpass. And then all these places were real places. The little house out in the country, I did not find anything on that.
Yeah, it seems like this was shot in a lot of like what I would call municipal architecture.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was basically shot in the greater London, what they call the Greater London Orbital, which can mean a lot of things because there's country and city living around there.
We got to some guy typing, which I think his name is Frank. I think I just call him the writer throughout my notes, but a lady in red answers the door because the Droogs are knocking at the door. The house is full of strange furniture. I guess they're just... Yeah, because it's like a pods and stuff. It's very futuristic and 70s. Primary colors. And I think there's the weird... Oh, no, I think that's later on. The weird, like, penis statue thing. I think that's later on.
That's at the cat lady's house.
Okay. So yeah, the lady's suspicious, like my friend's fallen ill, he's dying in the streets, like I need a phone to call an ambulance, and she's like, we don't have a phone. It's like, all right then. Do you have a cup of water? It's like, I guess we can do that. So of course she ends up letting the Droogs in, who just assault them while they wear masks, and of course Alex's mask is very phallic with a long nose on it. Alex is dancing and destroying things while he's singing in the rain.
Interesting fact about that, it was the only song Malcolm McDowell knew by heart.
Huh.
They filmed that, and then later Stanley Kubrick acquired the rights to use it in the film. And I guess I have heard, I don't know, who's the guy who made it famous? Gene Kelly supposedly wouldn't talk to Stanley Kubrick. The song was used.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, it's probably true. Not that Stanley Kubrick went to a lot of parties to meet Gene Kelly anyway, so it's like, okay, I don't know if this is true or not, but I like the way it sounds.
They rape the lady while the husband watches. Well, actually, I don't know if they're actually a couple, because later on he just has a weird giant muscle guy. So I don't know if it's like it's his assistant.
A lot of giant English muscle men in this. They're all over.
But I think he calls her honey, so I'm guessing. Yeah, because he says his wife.
Yeah, that's his wife.
Yeah, that's his wife. He's like gagged and tied, and they're forcing him to watch. It's a very terrible scene, so it lets you know, like, these are your main characters. You shouldn't like them.
Yeah, these are bad people. Yeah,
I mean, if you don't think that already, this lets you know. It's like, the gang go back to the milk bar. The milk is just dispensed from the breasts of the naked statues. You put a coin in, and somebody's hand from the set pushes a cup up.
Oh no, it comes out her breast.
No, the milk does, but no, there's like a cup dispenser that's clearly just somebody in like a piece of whatever they built pushing the cup up. It's like, why build a spring mechanism and a stack of cups like you'd have in a restaurant where you can just get some like electrical guy to like, just put your hand up here for the scene. It's like the only thing in the movie that looks like amateurish to me. It's why I pointed out. It's like, flaw in a Stanley Kubrick movie. No,
I always wanted to build one of those ladies and just have it, and just have no commentary for it. Like have Christmas pictures with the family, like everyone around the Christmas tree, and one of the milk dispensers from the Corona milk bar, and just be like, that is awful. Why do you have that? It's like, oh, it's culture, it's art, it's Stanley Kubrick.
I don't know. In your model building journeys, have you come across a Clockwork Orange models?
No. Unfortunately, no.
I believe, like, well, at least it was 2001. Stanley Kubrick was sort of not on board of like stuff being made after the movies, but you got some movie quality models you built from 2001s, but. That took the effort of a lot of people who were devoted to that. So,
yeah.
They're back at the Korova?
Yeah, I think it's the Korova Milk Bar.
Korova Milk Bar. Alex is appreciating a lady singing Beethoven. Dim like blows raspberries, so Alex just hits him with a cane. And Dim tries to fight back against him. It's like, why would you do that? Like, you're no brother of mine. But then, like, he backs down after Alex kind of, like, threatens him because he's, like, Alex is, like, the leader of the group.
Yeah, he's the head psychopath.
But like, the other guys are kind of on Dim's side, so there's kind of, like, strife growing amongst them, which,
yeah.
It's like, who would have thought cohesiveness once a bunch of psychopaths wouldn't hold? Then we got to Alex is walking home, and there's like murals on the wall just caked in sexual graffiti.
That was the college I was talking about. They had put those murals up at night.
Okay.
They could film and then have to take them all down during the day. Yeah, because the whole place looked like a mess. It was like nice public housing built for people, and it's just like mattresses everywhere and people drawing huge phallic symbol, because it was supposed to resemble like Roman like fresco art, like relief paintings of people and stuff, but they just drew like huge penises on them, and it's going in every time there's a buttocks or a pair of shorts, it's like there's this giant phallus. It's the most immature, ridiculous and stuff you'd ever see. It's like, this is funny because you can imagine these guys just doing this like freehand.
Well, yeah, it's also funny. Do you think a lot of this Stanley Kubrick is doing comedy on purpose, or do you think that's unintentional sometimes?
I mean, to my I have a very juvenile like fart humor mind in a lot of places, so I saw it as funny. Someone like him, who probably like really seems to have an appreciation of art and society, probably is like, no, this is clearly a sign of decay when you try to build something nice for people to look at and they just draw giant cocks on it. It's like, that doesn't mean your society's healthy. I mean, I'm just guessing. Maybe he thought it was great too. I don't
know. Of course, the elevator doesn't work. Just lets you know. Nope. Yeah, nothing works.
Nope. It's a what they call a dystopian society.
But it still looks nice. It's like shiny. It's like shiny things covered in graffiti.
Yeah,
Where it's like in real life, it would just be dirty things covered into graffiti. So.
Yeah, it'd just be like spray paint and the F word and people laying there in a puddle of their own urine. Like you don't see a lot of that. It's more like humorous.
Well,
Like,
it'd be dusty and like caked
Yeah.
in mud. Here, it's like somebody cleaned it and then somebody violated it.
yeah, it's like they're trying. It's like
Yeah.
the ants come out every time you kick the anthill over, and they're trying to stack it back up.
Alex goes to his room, which I don't know. Does he have two rooms? Or maybe they just shot it from a different angle. His room looks way different later on in the movie because they shoot it from a different angle. But
No,
here-
they're doing like weird camera techniques where the lens is almost like you walk into his room. It's like the room looks far away, but the corners are close. Like it's a real fisheye lens, and it has a strange depth to it. And with all the bright colors and stuff, it like, oh, this is like how a crazy person's room looks. Because we got like multiple Jesuses like crucified. Looks like they're doing a waltz, and
yeah, there's pornography and a snake in a drawer and just a drawer full of stolen goods.
and a hi-fi system that plays tiny micro cassettes over and over all night. Doesn't wake mom and dad up somehow.
Or he doesn't care if they wake up and they don't want to tell him to stop. So there's some naked Jesus statues just lined up in a row. Alex's mom knocks on the door. She has purple hair, so that you know, it's a futuristic society.
Yep.
Although he's supposed to be like, I don't know, a teenager, and she looks like she's 60. So nobody looks healthy in this movie except for Alex, pretty much.
Well, put it away. That actress's name is Sheila Rayner. Okay, in 1998 she died. She was 91. Oh, if we go back, she was like in her 60s when she did
that. She's telling him he needs to go to school, but he suggests that he's sick and he can't go. And then Alex is
painting me Gulliver, Mom. I'm trying to sleep it off. I'll be good as gold this afternoon. It's like just the way he talks.
If I push it, I'll be sick more, so I have to rest up so I can make it next time. And then we cut to Alex just walking around the house in his underwear with like both his hands in his underwear, He's just picking and grabbing things.
Don't forget that Mom and Dad talk in the world's smallest kitchen about like what Alex is doing. Oh, and his dad is like Mr. Grady from The Shining, so because the guy has a very distinct look, and because he's like, what time he came home last night, and she's like, no, I don't. I took me sleepers. I wouldn't know. So it's basically implied that he's whacked out on sleeping pills. And of course, Alex is like, have a good day at the factory, Mom. Oh, I will, because that's where you go to have a good day. But yeah, so then he walks out later. He's got his hands down the back of his pants, like on his butt. And he's walking down the hallway, and the camera's doing this weird up angle follow shot. Whereas, but again, it's got the fisheye lens, so you can see a guy sitting in a bedroom. And he walks by and doesn't acknowledge it and goes into the other room. And then he stops and he's like, wait. And he goes back and he meets this guy he's a weird PR deltoid. His basically what we would call a probation officer.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah. And he talks like this. He was like, I ran into your mom on the way here. Alex gave me the key. She did. Heard there was a bit of nasty business last night, Alex. The certain Billy Boys and his friends in the hospital. Bad doings. I don't know if I'm getting the line right, but that's how the guy talks.
Yeah,
really strange.
Yeah, he's strange compared to Alex. So
yeah.
This is supposed to be the good guy, and he's creepier than the bad guy,
Yeah, this is the government official. Bad business, they say. It's like, oh, this guy's nuts.
Yeah, he's also just trying to warn him, like, hey, like you're gonna go to jail if you don't quit it,
and that would make me look bad. All my work for nothing.
And then, and Alex is sitting down next to him, and he's already kind of creepy. Then he just grabs his crotch. He just grabs his dick. And they're like, oh, okay, this is some weird sexual... Okay, this is what happened to Alex. He's been sexually assaulted by somebody. I don't know if that's what made him who he is, but this is like... Yeah, Kubrick got that right. It's like, yeah, sexual assault kind of breeds bad things throughout.
Well, you've got the parents that are just like out of their they're just out of their head. They don't know what's going on.
They don't know how to control them. They don't know what he needs, and they don't even talk to him. They don't even know who their son is. So.
Yeah, and then these are the government people that because Deltoid's given this speech about I've got to save you from yourself, and then he just grabs his crotch and really more like punches him in the balls at the same time.
And he starts, and then the probation officer starts drinking from a denture's cup by the table.
Yeah, he's like holding, like he's shaking the glass like there's ice in it and it's dentures, and then he looks down on it and he's like, ugh.
Yeah, but he looks at it like way later. Like he takes a drink of it and it takes like a full drinking. 2 minutes.
Yeah. All the crap from those dentures that is settled in the bottom, he's now drank. Horrifying. It's like a nightmare to think about. Of course, I don't know who just grabs a glass and drinks out of it. But that's a British thing. Who knows? Oh, cup of tea. Yeah. It's like, no, not everything's a cup of tea.
Classic humor.
Yes.
So have that being the end of Act 1, because it's like, well, if you don't shape up, Alex, you're going to jail. So,
and Alex is going to take that advice to heart, and the movie ends.
So we have Act 2. Alex is at like a record store in a purple suit. It's like just vibrant colors and narrow, shiny hallways.
Yep.
Like, is this any kind of real location, or is this just a fully built set?
It is now McDonald's in London, but it was a shop at one time.
Huh. Okay.
And yes, you could walk through, and you could walk through the whole thing. It was like end to end. That's why they picked it, so they could do that weird, like whatever kind of angle lens filming that is.
Yeah.
Where you see the guy straight on and everything to the sides instead of like just a hallway shot. It's something different. Yeah, and he looks really cool for like the 70s. Like, because my favorite Doctor Who outfit was always the Third Doctor. It's like, man, I wish I could rock one of those frilly shirts, but nobody does that anymore. People would just think you're some kind of weirdo, and they'd be right.
2 weeks in a row, we got a purple suit going on. So
yeah, and I like it every time.
Alex tries picking up on ladies who are like filleting popsicles that I don't know if they're like, is that ice cream or some sort of like gummy worm on a popsicle stick?
I'm assuming it's some kind of sugary thing for the purposes of filming, but he's like, "What's wrong with yours, little sister? It's melted," because it looks like a bent cock,
Yeah. And they seem
apparently
to just
he wins these women over somehow.
Well, yeah, it seems like they're ignoring him, and then they just cut to a very sped up film of an orgy they have in his room.
And it's set to like some kind of classic music. I forget which one that is, but it's like the running of the Preakness. It's like dun, 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 and they're just like
they're just Benny Hill orgy going on.
Yeah, it's like really weird. Like the one chick puts her clothes on, then takes them off again. It's like, oh wow, this guy must have got a Viagra at the milk bar. Or that was a thing.
Got an upper at the at the Corova milk bar.
Gotta keep me upper for me upper.
Got a long head for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. We cut to the Droogs are hanging out in the lobby waiting for Alex. They're in their get up. He's not. He's still in his purple suit. Here it's the lackeys trying to intimidate the leader. Here George is like leading the pushback. And also like in just like almost no, like it's not even like clever, but it's like Dim is like, he's called Dim because he's the dumb one, and here he's sitting in a baby carriage. So the symbolism is so on point. I mean, he's not on the wheels. It's like the baby carriage has collapsed.
Yeah,
and
he's just like on the ground.
Yeah.
Or how would they say it in England? He's sitting in a pram.
But then like here's where like Alex is like, there has to be a leader, and I'm the leader. And then we cut to them walking along the water. And then Alex just starts beating up the gang, which I think he punches him in the crotch, but it's like, oh man, the codpiece didn't work.
Hits him with his stick. He's got like a shillelagh or something. Or something like that. I don't know. It's some kind of like club stick. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're like throwing the water.
If Clockwork Orange was American, they'd just be shooting at everyone. Here they have to use sticks and knives and stuff.
Well, he like beats him in the water, and he's still like out on the shore, which not like a beach shore. It's just like a brick
It's like a pond.
walkway.
Yeah, it's like an artificial pond. Yeah.
And then he like he holds his stick behind him, and then like he unsheaves like a knife, a dagger from it, and then he starts cutting them, or he cuts. I think he cuts Dim's hand.
Him because he's like he's like holding his hand out like, here, let me help, and then behind him he draws the knife out and then just like cuts Dim's hand, which seems like a surface wound, but Dim reacts as if he's been set on fire because this is all shot in slow motion.
Yeah.
So the violence is so the facial expressions change very slow, and it's really tight film or filmed close, so it looks disturbing, in a way.
But here Alex asserts himself as a leader, but that just builds discontent amongst the rest. So, and I think the fourth guy just runs off. Like I don't think he actually takes any damage. It's just Dim and George that take the brunt of it.
They're the leaders. George was the spokesman, and Dim was the muscle.
Then they cut to like they're just like drinking alcohol. I think it's alcohol at a normal bar.
Yeah, they're actually like it's an actual like pub.
Yeah. Alex lets Georgie come up with a plan to like rob and destroy some lady in the countryside because that's just what they do for fun. Then we cut to some lady who's doing yoga in green spandex. I think it's yoga. You think this is the first yoga depiction on screen?
Probably. Like Health Farm, they called it. So yeah.
There's a knock at the door, and then Alex is trying to con his way in the house, but the lady isn't having it. So they sneak around the house and look for a different way in. This is Mrs. Weathers. She calls the cops to warn them that like something weird is going on. And then Alex just kind of sneaks into the room backwards with Mrs. Weathers. This is where there's a dick statue on the table that Alex is like infatuated with, and he starts
it like rocks back and forth.
Yeah,
like the testicles are like the counterweight. So it's this weird statue.
And then Alex is assaulting the lady. Well, he's also like he picks up the statue and he's kind of like circling her around with it. And then he assaults her some more. He leaves the house to the waiting droogs, and they just hit him with a bottle of milk and then run away as the cops are showing up.
He killed her with the giant phallic statue, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because she was I think she hit him, like because he was like holding the statue, penis facing her, like running around the room laughing, and she finally like hit him with a bookend or something, and so then he like pushes her with the statue and then takes it over his head and like smashes her skull, and we don't see it, but we just see this giant penis go towards the camera. Breaks. And then he runs outside, and the droogs are waiting for him, and they smash a bottle on his head just as the police because she called the police after they tried to get in the front door, and they said they'd send a car out, and just as the police are showing up, like he's laying there with a shattered bottle in the side of, or broke over his head, which I guess that would. I've never had that happen. I guess that's pretty jarring.
I don't know. Even if it's sugar glass, it sucks because even sugar glass will cut you. But especially if it's a bottle full of milk, that's just extra weight for the damage.
Yeah, I mean the bottom of those things is really solid. Actually, when you shatter one of those, usually the bottom stays together.
We cut to Alex is being interrogated. The cops beat up Alex a bit, and then his probation officer comes in to tell Alex that the lady died at the hospital, and so now he's a murderer.
You are now a murderer, young Alex. And all my work for nothing. I love that guy's dialogue. The delivery is so weird.
Cooper got out of that guy's way. He's too weird.
Yeah, Kubrick was like, I can't even film this. Take over. I'm too freaked out.
Kubrick filmed this like he was making an atomic bomb. I gotta get behind the lead wall.
Yeah, he's got like arms, like those weird arms. Such disturbing British people. One of these people ran the world. They're crazy. Why live here surrounded by madmen?
Polite madmen.
Polite madmen. Pardon me, could you fuck off? Like, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
good sir. I'll fuck right off.
And you too, sir.
Condolences.
Piss off. Why, I think I might.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah, all British people are like some version of Monty Python. I don't really know what they sound like anymore. It's just like, well, it's either like what's the guy? It's either like Idris Elba as Luther. Like I assume they either all talk like that or some version of The Office or Monty Python. It's like that's all I know about,
Well, like that one guy talking about that, I think he's chief officer or whatever, but he shows up later on. I really just thought that was the John Cleese for a moment because it was so over the top. There's so many times this movie, it's like, is this Monty Python? It's like, no.
Nope.
And where is that? Is that later on or is that concurrent with this?
Same time.
Same time? Okay.
Yeah.
Alex is sentenced to 14 years in prison. Then we cut to like the prisoners are at a mass. And they don't find salvation in the Lord. In fact, they have some of the guys are like making kissy faces at Alex because he's the young guy in prison. Because I don't know, the book ends, he's like 18, and I think here he's supposed to be in prison for like a year. So that means he's like 16 or 17 here or something like that. So, which I guess if you commit a murder, you're not going to juvenile detention. They just send you to real prison here. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, this is the world in free fall.
Yeah. Alex runs the projector, which is kind of fun because it's like the projector just has like a couple of rolls with stuff already written on it, and he just like undoes the roll.
Yeah, he's just like cranking it like the Lord saved me. And I'm watching that. I was like, well, most of these people are probably illiterate. Yeah, because he's become like the chaplain's assistant.
Yeah, because he's trying to survive. So he's just like, well, they want me to do this, and like I can pretend all day.
Yeah,
that's fun too. We cut to like it's a library. Alex is reading the Bible because he's just trying to run a con on the minister, or not the minister. Well, he's the father, whatever, Catholic priest.
Yeah, this guy's an Irish actor, Godfrey Quidley. So yeah, and he sounds like it too. So he's like your classic Irish priest, which at the time this movie came out was like, oh well, he's the prison chaplain helping a young man. Now we know later it's like, whoa, that might be the worst guy to be near, Alex.
Yeah.
Be careful.
There's even some hints of it, like just moments later, where he's like, "Now I know, like you'll think of the proclivities of girls being surrounded by men." It was like, oh, this is gonna get really creepy. But then he goes to free will stuff, and so it makes it less creepy. So it's like, he's actually genuinely concerned with him. Okay, he's not just trying to get a hand job on the side at the prison or something.
Yeah. All right, now God would want you to jerk me off. Sorry, God.
That's what other people do in your name.
Yeah. I'm not endorsing it.
So Alex is reading the Bible and he imagines the crucifixion and him being a Roman soldier that's beating up Jesus.
Yeah, he's like whipping Jesus and like just with a big grin on his face. Oh, and the sights I beheld, brothers, the things I imagined. It's like, yeah, this is exactly the problem with this guy.
But here Alex doesn't have a name; he's a number, so he's 655321. That is his prison number. Here Alex kind of like breaks away, like slightly privately with the father about like an experimental treatment that like lets people out of prison immediately. And the father's like, how'd you hear about this? And he's like, I don't know. It's like, oh, but my boy, like if you take that treatment, like you'll have no free will. You won't be a man anymore. And Alex is like, okay, but I want to try it anyway.
Good point, but the whole getting out of prison thing.
That's my entire concern. Then we cut to the walking circle where the prisoners there's a circle on the ground and they walk in a circle. That's their exercise. So.
And everyone's like, bread and butter, bread and butter. Pass the time. It's like a Supermax, but in the UK.
Someone
some weird name like Queen's Mercy Court. My favorite was the prison they closed. They put all the the IRA guys in. It's called the Maze, and it's like, oh, is that the nickname? It's like, no, it's called HMS the Maze. It's like weird, really. And it was a horrible prison. It looked like it was something from the Middle Ages. Closed it down, but that's where the guys like starved themselves to death and stuff, doing like protests.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the one. And Margaret Thatcher was like, well, I can't see doing compassionate leave. They're terrorists, so let them starve to death. And these guys literally like starved themselves to death. I think after the 8th guy did it, they're like, hey, we got these guys are. Man, but I don't know. It's like, is that bad for Margaret Thatcher? Because if like someone came to our country and committed terrorist acts and killed people, it's like, oh, they want to starve to death? Well, maybe they wouldn't have to do that if they didn't kill a bunch of people here being terrorists.
What are we gonna do? Force feed them? That's against their free will. They're doing. You get free will in prison. That's a miracle.
I always love those freedom fighter protests. It's like, yeah, okay, I get it. That whole situation's weird, but it's like, well, you don't get to go to another country and set off bombs and then like come home a hero. Like that's not how that country's going to view it. Anyway.
Someone comes by. I think this is the Minister of the Interior. He inspects Alex's cell, which is just full of Jesus, pornography, and Beethoven. So, which I was surprised they let them have. Here's where he's talking about, like, basically this guy is commenting about like how the prison system is like, if you cram criminals together, you get concentrated criminals. So this isn't rehabilitating people. Which is
Ministry of the Interior, Frederick.
Good old Fred.
Well, he's like an upper class guy, you can tell.
Yeah,
he's one of those British guys. It's like, well, of course we run everything. We went to Eton, for God's sake. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. These are the guys that run the world.
So they line him up. The chief officer like lines them all up like he's a drill instructor and stuff, and he even makes all his mannerisms are like eccentric Nazi mannerisms.
Like clapping basically goose stepping, and stopping and like clap clap, doing that with his feet like a Polish soldier in the First World War or something.
And almost doing a Heil Hitler, but it stops at his head for like the good old English, lifting the knighthead salute thing.
Yes. He does that.
And he almost has a the Hitler stash, just a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, he's a caricature. He's like, fascism, German fascism was bad. British fascism was bad.
We can make this work. It's so efficient.
Just have to weed out the malcontents. Pink Floyd's The Wall was just based on this guy.
So they line them all up, and Alex makes himself stand out by saying like, "You're right, sir." And so he gets himself, because he's young and rambunctious, I guess. It's like, what did he do? It's like, oh, he murdered somebody. He's like, perfect.
And Barnes like freaks out at him immediately. Like, shut your filthy hole. It's like, just runs at his face. Like,
shut your filthy hole. And then when the guy asks a question, it's like, he asked you a question.
Yeah,
that whole dichotomy.
Oh yeah. Well,
shut up.
That. You
now
know
you
that
can tell.
firsthand.
Yeah. All right, I don't get to win here. Okay, cool.
No matter what I say, the answer is wrong.
The only way to win is not to play the game.
Cool. What? Who asked you?
Okay, he gets put in the experimental program, and they take him to the Ludovico medical facility. Alex is transferred to the medical facility. Here's where he says name's Barnes. He's really pissed about this. It's like, he was under my command. I was not going to change him. I was going to brutalize him for my own faith. So yeah, he's all
Now the Ludovico facility again. This remember my genres of architecture is amazing brutalist architecture. It's actually the lecture theater at Brunel University in Uxbridge, Greater London. But this thing looks like right out of a sci-fi movie. But it's like this is not actually a set they built. This is just a lecture auditorium at a university. But that's the Ludovico Institute in this. It's like because you see it from the outside once, and you're like, "What the hell? That's cool." Because I like that kind of architecture. Everyone else says it's garbage, but for me, it's like, well,
it's architecture. It makes you think it's the future. It's kind of like it's a spaceship or something made out of concrete.
Well, in the 70s, it used to make you think of the future. Now, when I see it, it makes me think of the 70s, which through my eyes today is like that was a very optimistic time. Even though earlier in the podcast I said it was a dark time, but it was like, oh, it was dark, but not as dark as it is now. So it's optimistic. That's why I like brutalist architecture. That it just takes me back to the days of my youth. Because believe it or not, listeners, I went to a few psych facilities as a young adult. It's like I'm familiar with what these places look like, and it kind of it's like what a cherished memory. But I wasn't a psychopath or anything. I didn't kill anyone. I was just an asshole. But that's another story.
Alex is in a waiting room. The officer, Barnes is kind of pissed because like Alex is like handcuffed to another guard from the prison facility. And they undo the cuffs, and the new guard, who's also just a large man, just kind of takes his arm, is like, let's go this way. And Barnes is like, why aren't you? Well, he doesn't say it, but he's basically in his mind, he's like, why aren't you beating him to submission?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Barnes is pissed that, like, it's like, no, they should be treating him cruelly, like, because he deserves it. And they're like, nah, he's our experiment. We kind of need him healthy, so, yeah. They're like in a hospital room, and he's getting prepared for the treatment. And then he's like, hey, he's just kind of like optimistic. It's like, oh, cool, this is gonna be really short, and I'm gonna be done with this. So he has no idea what's going to happen. So he's like, hey, what's this drug do? It's like, it just makes you susceptible to things. He's like, oh, okay. He's thinking like he can just like mentally beat all this or whatever.
Yeah, this is basically a form of what was called then at the time aversion therapy, which is a way to make something you like into something you hate through the application of, mainly electrical shocks. You ever heard of it like shock therapy and all that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's aversion therapy. This was just like, oh, this is chemical aversion therapy. This is like, it's not called Pavlovian conditioning. There's another word for it, but it's like we're going to apply X thing to get this result. So it's like, okay, A says you like alcohol. We apply the X thing, and then all of a sudden you will associate alcohol with something negative, but we'll administer that negativity will be reinforced through pain or electrical shock. But in this case, for the book, it was written as like, now we can do it with chemicals. They don't explain how or why. But they can't. So which is like, that's a Clockwork Orange. It's like he's not really a person anymore. He's just been conditioned to not be a person.
And then we cut to Alex is strapped to a chair in a theater, and this is probably the other most famous scene you'll know from Clockwork Orange. It's them being hooligans and this.
Yes.
His eyelids are pried open, and then like there's a doctor that just administers eye drops on occasion.
By the way, real doctor, real eyelid locks, really screwed up Malcolm McDowell's eyes. It was like, that was that was not an effect. They actually did that, and it screwed his eyes up. That was a real doctor there. They paid to be on set to put the eye drops in to make sure everything was up and up. Terrifying, because like this is why the performance is so great in this scene. This guy's truly miserable.
It's not even the violence. It's just the
pain. Yeah.
Oh man, have you ever like tried to blink your eyes and you're like holding it open? It's like that sucks.
I've never.
You just feel like a muscle go. It's like, oh god.
I've never done because I wear glasses now. I can't, I got to look at something up close. I've never done contacts, or I've never had to do like
Oh, you haven't done that thing where they blow air in your eye?
Yeah, I have a real problem with that. So that's why I never advance for like contacts or like, oh, they can correct your vision with this laser surgery. It's like, no, they can't. I can't. If you got to like practically strap me down to blow air into my eye. So, what is that for? It's for like glaucoma or something. But yeah,
Yeah. That's the fucked up thing about it. It's like it's testing a response. It's like, oh, I have a response. My eye blinks before the air gets there. I have a great response to it. It's like, no, it needs to hit your eye. Fuck you.
yeah. You know what? If you're trying to prove my eyelids protect my eyes, congratulations. You don't even need to run the test. It's kind of like passing the speed of light. Like it happened before you know it happened. Therefore, we're done. Can I get up now? Here's your $50. Thanks.
So he's like showing violence. He loves it, but then the drugs start to make him sick of the violence he's seeing. He's shown a rape, and then he says he's about to be sick, and like all the people in the people committing violence in this set of footage like looks like the Droogs. They're basically dressed like the Droogs from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, everyone's has like some weird costume, like a bowler hat and strange outfits. Yeah.
And then we cut to like I think it's the next day time of testing. And it's just like stock footage of Nazis.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be a parallel where it's like this is bad footage, but this is also what this government is doing to control people. So and Alex is now becoming sick of Ludwig, good old Ludwig van, or Ludwig van. And this is where he starts screaming. And it's not because of the violence. It's like, he's like, no, you ruined Beethoven. It's like, he didn't do anything wrong. He just wanted to make music. And then like the doctors kind of like confer with themselves like, we'll just have to keep going with it. This is just part of your punishment. Yeah. And this is what really Alex has the problem with. It's like,
you've got to be cured, Alex.
Is that now they've drawn a negative association with the thing he loves the most.
Yeah.
This is like, like how Tony Soprano was like a psychopath, but like, he could be sort of softened by like babies and animals because those were like those were innocent enough he could see them as real people, where everybody else he had no problem killing or do anything like that too. So this is his version of that. It's like, no, music, it's an innocent thing.
Yeah. I was like Tony Soprano's like what do they call that, like distorted empathy.
Yeah,
because he was kind of a screwed up nervous kid with anxiety problems. It's like, I don't know, he has a strange empathy with like things that like make him feel good, or he has a weird association with, but then he'll shoot someone in the face. Like, it's like he will do that too and not think about it and never be bothered about it. It's like, because it's always funny in The Sopranos, like he's meeting his therapist to talk about his anxiety, and she's like, are you anxious about all the murder and violence? No, I just feel like, it's like the American dream is over and I'm never going to be a part of it. It's like, oh, he's truly a psychopath. It's amazing. Yeah, so Alex is angry because he can't, listen to the the Ludwig van anymore.
I think it's the Ninth Symphony. Symphony in particular.
I forget. Yeah, I have it. It's so funny because again, it's done in a very pop synth. What was it? It's done in a very pop synth. Like, I can't say enough good things about the soundtrack to this movie, and so it sounds like really upbeat. Because it's like bong, ba-bong, ba-bong, and it's like just Hitler like doing a Nuremberg rally or something, and it's like, oh, this is weird. Like, this is something crazy people in like the Valley in California would watch at parties with their friends to prove how edgy they were. It's like, this is so strange.
In between orgies.
Yeah, in between like massive drug orgies and stuff.
Then we cut to Alex is brought out in front of a crowd to like prove that their therapy works. Because this is all like a political ploy by some British party. They aren't names, so you just know it's like, British. England has a lot of parties that have a lot of more than two.
Yeah, I mean they just had a crazy one for a long time. It was UKIP. That was like Boris Johnson and his people.
Um,
There was supposedly that was the Conservative Party, but it was also like another party before, and it's like, okay, whatever. I don't understand your weird parliament.
so
You
it
just have
basically
Trump
like,
with whoever's against him here. That's all we have.
but like the whole thing here is like, apparently, I mean, they don't really bring it up. The idea is that like everyone is tired of crime and they want like results of rehabilitating criminals, and it's just not happening. It's like crime's creating crime, and it's a never-ending spiral. So here it's like, we have the solution, so now elect us and let us control everything. Essentially that's what's going on here, which is kind of almost out of left field. It's like, wait, that's what this movie's about. But it makes sense. So some guy starts coming out and like berating Alex. He slaps him in the face. He starts beating him. Alex starts to feel sick as he like thinks of like the violent things he wants to do to him, but he can't because his body's just, and he's just dry heaving the whole time.
Yeah, he's like belching and dry heaving because he's trying to throw a punch, but it's like he can't follow through.
Yeah,
and he's obviously like in pain as a result of it.
And then the man makes
physically sick.
And then the man makes him lick his boot, and so that proves that the audience like kind of like applauds, like, oh, well, no, actually they don't applaud yet, but they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is really working. When was bootlicker a term?
Well, that goes back. Where did I first? There was like recruitment posters about like not being a bootlicker. So World War II, I would assume.
And then a naked lady comes out, and Alex tries to touch her breast, but it just overcome with sickness. Here's where the crowd applauds, like, yeah, you put on a show. Thanks for the naked lady. And then the lady takes a bow and leaves, and she's kind of smiling. So it's kind of like the few times in this movie where like nudity's like almost okay, because previously it's like, oh no, I don't want this.
Yeah, nudity always means rape every time. And this,
except for 2 incidences, and this is one of them. So, and then the father is there, and he stands up and declares that like Alex has no choice and no free will, and so like this is an abomination. And
yeah, this
like,
man isn't rehabilitated; he's just a slave or something like that.
Yeah. And he's right. Yeah,
it's actually it's he's not really rehabilitated.
But everybody else is like, yeah, but results, like this is 2 weeks. Like we were going to put him in prison for 14 years. Like this is way faster.
Yeah, we don't have to pay for this. We just pay for this once.
One and done. Covers all the bases. So have that being the end of Act 2, because it's Alex at his lowest. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of gets lower, but it's the start of the lows.
2 into 3, yeah.
So we have Act 3. Alex gets home, and he's like, after having been released from prison, but apparently he didn't tell his parents he was coming, so it's like a surprise. His parents are reading a newspaper about Alex, and so this is where they're learning about it, because they weren't in contact, so because they're barely parents to his son, and he's not a son to his parents. So. When he shows up, they're afraid of him for some reason. You don't know why. You just know like, oh, they did some weird stuff to him, and we only know him as the weird, violent kid that lives in our house, so we don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, I don't know. What do you imagine their fear of Alex is?
Well, it's kind of like the fear of the unknown. It's also like the fear of like, oh, we were getting on with our lives, because we're like, it's like, oh, well, this burden was kind of lifted off of us, and now it's back. Like we never knew what to do with him. So yeah, that seems to be like their anxiety. Okay. Like they care about him in a tangential way, but ultimately they care more about like, well, I don't really want to be inconvenienced.
There's a new guy there, Joe, that the parents are renting Alex's room out to, which I guess that's just a common thing in Britain. Like,
it's Joe the lodger.
Well, actually, I don't know this about Britain, but it's like in all their shows where it's just like there's like 5 people living in a house, and there's like, and like 3 of them are like family members, and 2 people are just like renting rooms, and they all come out to the breakfast table, and have breakfast. Which is not a thing you ever experience in America.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say in America, God knows who'd be showing up. Like, room for let, anyone, just want to come in and have eggs with me in the morning. And God, this guy would be like throwing a chainsaw at you, like psycho. Like, you don't know what the hell's gonna happen. Actually, that's sad because most people are pretty cool. But yeah, no, we don't do that here because no one trusts anyone here because we're all cowboys and we live on our own.
Yeah,
that's just kind of our thing. And that actually is true. That's even true about me. I'm not judging that. It's like, no, I would always rather be alone. It's like, that's always me.
But basically there's like, Alex is like, hey, I've been through this treatment. Like, I'm better. Like, can I come back to home and be a son now? And they're like, yeah, but we don't want to inconvenience Joe. I mean, he did all the work. He paid his rent in advance. So, that'd be unfair to Joe.
Yeah, he's paid up 3 months, Alex. It's like, I'm helpless at this point.
Which, I don't know. And also in my reasoning mind, I'm like, well, there's a couch there. It's like, just let Joe have the room and Alex can have the couch. But, that's not the point of the scene. Logic isn't the point of the scene.
The point of this is like the last bastion. What he took for granted was his parents is like, now that's gone too.
Here Joe gets up in Alex's face and stands up for Alex's parents because they won't stand up for themselves because like, oh, you're a son, we don't want to harm you.
What you've done to your poor mother and father. You're ashamed of yourself. And then he starts getting sick and belching, and Joe's like, it's revolting, isn't it? And the mom's like, point towards the paper, it's the treatment,
The police took all of Alex's stuff and like apparently gave it to like the people he harmed or the family.
Yeah, here's a snake after the dead lady's family.
Well, he also has that drawer full of jewelry and stuff
and money.
Apparently the government pawned off. He also found out his pet snake had died amongst just the turmoil of things happening.
Yeah.
So Alex finds himself unwelcome at his home, even though he's never really welcome there in the first place. But yeah, like you were saying, that was his last hope. It's like, I can just go home and chill out there for a while and just kind of like, unwind a bit without, not in the violent way, just the place to sleep.
Yeah.
So Alex takes to the streets. Here, I assume he's thinking of suicide. He's staring at a bridge, and usually that's like a immediate cross section with suicide. But I don't know. There's a lot of bridges in Britain, so I'm not sure what you're supposed to think about when people stare at a bridge in Britain. So, and then the vagrant he beat up earlier in the movie, like, asked for charity, and so he gives it to him, and then he recognizes Alex. And so he's kind of like shuttling him towards like an underpass with a bunch of other elderly homeless people, and they beat up and steal Alex's bag of clothes.
Yeah.
And then some cops come up to stop the elderly people beating up Alex, and it's the old droogs who are now cops, which is perfect.
Yeah, it's Billy and Dim.
They basically haven't changed at all. They just have a costume and now an official badge, which is how it kind of works in real life too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like Dim's like, 2 jobs for men of working age, And it's like you think like, oh, this is crazy, and then you look at all policing in America, like, oh no, it isn't. It makes a lot of sense.
So they laugh at him, and they, as he's like getting sick around them because he wants to like beat them up, but he can't. And so they drag him out to the countryside. They beat him up and violently shove his head in a trough and hold him down there for a good like 2 minutes or something, like just real
somehow
time.
There's a horse trough like in the middle, which is a good way to get parasites having your face.
They uncuff him and leave him there, which like even though like they're not touching him anymore, he like Malcolm McDowell still just holding his head underwater, just for a little bit extra. It's like, oh, did they just kill him? It's like, that's commitment to the craft. I hope they didn't shoot that scene 100 times. It starts to they just leave him there. It starts to storm. He's like trying to walk back to town And then he comes across again the home sign from the start of the movie.
Yeah.
And we cut to the guy is typing, like I believe his name is Frank, but now he's in a wheelchair this time.
Yeah.
And then there's a knock at the door.
Oh, yeah, when I was thinking about this, it reminded me. Sad thing is, this guy reminded me of Cormac McCarthy died this week.
Oh yeah,
and it kind of looks like this guy weirdly in a way. So I was thinking about the movie. I was like, so Cormac McCarthy in the UK.
I was thinking about this guy was it Hector from Breaking Bad, the guy in the wheelchair with the bell? That's who this reminded me of.
Oh yeah, Hector Salamanca or whatever. Yeah, because he actually looks like him in the one scene when he recognizes. Okay, well, go ahead.
So this is basically like a repeat. It's basically just repeating the scene from earlier, but now just slight things have changed. He's in a wheelchair. When they pan over, it's not his wife in red. It's some giant bodybuilder in a red Speedo just chucking weights.
Yeah.
And glasses. He's like a dorky, meaty British man.
Yeah, you would like mess with this guy because of his pop bottle glasses, but then you'd realize, he could just beat you to a pulp. His glasses are why his arms are so big.
It's very funny. So the bodybuilder guy opens the door and Alex just collapses in on the door. Again, kind of funny. They have the writer kind of recognizes Alex, but he's not sure. And so,
because Alex was wearing his phallic mask when he gang raped him, and Stroogs gang raped his wife. So it's like, well,
it's almost like a misdirect for the audience, because like the audience knows, but he doesn't know. And here we're supposed to think, oh, does he know? But he doesn't. But the Frank shows him some kindness, and so but it seems to be kind of duplicitous, but you're not sure. Oh wait, no, he does recognize him. But he doesn't recognize him from him raping his wife. He recognizes him from the papers.
Yeah,
okay, experiment.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, get how the scene builds. Okay, actually a cool build. So yeah,
because apparently, what's revealed later on is apparently Frank here is like a part of some other political society, so it's like, this is the whole politics revolve around Alex at this point. So
Alex is politics pawn in the
UK. We cut to Alex enjoys
it was actually explained to me as like Alex is the linchpin of a dystopian UK society transitioning from a socialist society to an authoritarian society. Actually, Stanley Kubrick said that. So yeah, it's one of his like interviews, random interviews he did with strange people, because he famously didn't talk to very many people. It's like they were asking him like, so what does this say about the UK? It's like, they're going from socialism to authoritarianism. Oh, okay, cool. Do you have any? No, get away. Okay. My Kubrick interview.
I did the work.
The fact that I'm even here telling you makes me sick. So, I'm going to go read a book about architecture in the 14th century now with my wife, in my weird mansion full of books, because I have an IQ of like 170 and I helped take a foot landing.
But I can't tie my shoes.
Peace. Yeah.
That's not a Stanley Kubrick thing. That's just kind of a genius thing where it's like, look at all they can do, but there's simple things they just refuse or can't do.
Mainly refuse, but the rest of us like to feel superior. It's like, I can tie my shoes. It's like, this man invented science to change the world. You can tie your shoes. You win. Okay. Your life does matter, right? Okay. That's just me.
And that's how religion works.
Yeah, and that's what God said.
Cut to Alex is enjoying a bath, and here he starts humming, singing in the rain. This is where we have like Frank is on the phone with like, hey, we can use Alex as a political pawn. But in the meantime, he starts to recognize like Alex singing in the rain. And now and here's the point, he starts to get sickened himself and like overcome with terror. It's like this weird, they shoot the camera straight up and his head's like against the door and he's like, like convulsing.
He goes full Hector Salamanca. Like, he's just waiting for him to start ringing that bell.
And I think even the music is like getting terrified. Like it's like some weird
Well, yeah,
is
'cause
it
this guy's
becoming
like
a
this, like
horror
his
movie?
eyes are rolled up. He's like,
Yeah.
doing that. And it's like, what? Is this guy having a fit?
And then we cut to Alex is at a table alone, just eating some spaghetti.
Yeah, yeah, this is a great.
And then
Try the wine.
And then Julian, the bodybuilder, comes in, and he's just lifting Frank and his whole wheelchair all together.
Yeah,
he's
I mean,
just
that's why you
walking him
have this guy
downstairs.
around.
Yeah, this is like, yeah, we're not gonna.
I'm
we don't-
master, he's blaster. Okay, that's what's going on here.
Well, it's like, you know, it's like, well, now that the state is responsible for your care, we don't want to build like wheelchair ramps and stuff. We'll just give you a giant man.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone who lifts weights doesn't have an IQ much above 50, so he'll be happy to do this.
Yeah, he's getting his workout in, and he's getting paid for it. You know, he'll love it.
All those guys are dumb, like until you meet Arnold Schwarzenegger and realize, oh, he was a millionaire before he ever did one line of acting. It's like, oh, okay. I watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing on Netflix. It was pretty cool. I didn't realize how smart that guy was, but no, that doesn't have anything to do with this. It's just cool.
So yeah, the two sit down with Alex. They're not eating, and they just stare daggers into Alex.
Yeah.
Alex is like, this is weird, but he's not stating it out loud. And they offer wine that he's incredibly suspicious of correctly.
Oh yeah, because like I said, Frank's like just totally not selling it. He's like, try the wine. It's like, I think this wine might be drugged. We know that. Maybe Alex is like, well, this spaghetti's pretty good.
Well, we also have to mention, like, you know, Alex recognizes him, of course. And
Oh yeah,
like,
he knows what's going on.
and is waiting for some restitution to come. So
Retribution, you mean?
yeah. What did I say?
Restitution. Well,
What's that?
actually, yes.
What is
Yeah,
restitution?
Commit. It's how you. What do you call that? Like if I stole from you and I got caught, I would have to pay you back the amount.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like remuneration for a crime committed. I couldn't think of the words, but yeah.
Yeah.
So in a way, yes,
the restoration of something lost or stolen to its proper owner. Okay.
So in a way, yes, both terms apply.
Let's see here. Yeah. So he's just waiting for retribution to happen. So he's like, well, I guess he keeps eating the spaghetti, and he drinks the wine, and he's like, he looks at it and like, this is 67. That's a good one. And you have to know, like, this is supposed to be like the 90s, so like this is supposed to be like good aged wine at this point. Yeah. Yeah, this is basically.
He takes 2 sips of the wine, and then falls face first into the spaghetti.
Well, not just yet, because he drinks like 2 full cups of the wine before that happens.
Oh, I thought it was like 2 sips. Okay, yeah.
No, he drinks 1 glass and then like have some more.
Did you like the wine?
Here's where
like have some more.
Here's where Alex learns that basically his gang essentially raped his wife to death. Like, that's not what happened. She died of pneumonia later on, but essentially that's what happened.
Oh yeah, and that will happen too. That's brutally violating people.
Then there's someone at the door. These are like some politicians or like media people. I don't know. They interview Alex. They're just a part of the other government that are trying to get power. Here's where they learn that Beethoven's Ninth Symphony triggers a suicidal urge in him. And then here's where Alex says, I feel at any second something terrible is going to happen to me. And that's when he passes out in the spaghetti very comically.
Yeah.
And then like the guy like lifts his head up and just kind of seethes in his face, and he has like, you know, bits of meat and spaghetti on there. So, and then we cut to Alex.
It's a fun scene.
Yeah. We cut to Alex wakes up in a room with Beethoven playing. He's locked in there. He's like pounding on the ground, begging them to turn off the music. Then we cut to like,
yeah, they have like a stadium speaker aimed at the floor. It's so loud, and of course, you know, Frank's sitting in the wheelchair like this again, like.
Yeah, she's like trembling with regret and excitement at the same time.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's really wild. That guy's. I think that guy's name's Patrick McGee. He's a pretty famous. Uh, where's he from? Like Northern Ireland. So he's like an Irish actor.
Huh.
That's I forget. He did another movie with Kubrick. I can't remember which one it is. But he's been in a lot of things. He was in like Cromwell, which was before this. What was the other movie he was in? Damn it. He was in Tales from the Crypt too.
Yeah, everybody was in that.
72. So the early Tales. Oh, Barry Lyndon. He was in Barry Lyndon.
Okay.
He played one of the main characters. He was like Cavalier de Buleri or something. I forget. He was one of the Okay. If you've ever seen Barry Lyndon, he was like one of the three main characters in that.
Okay.
More smaller.
He probably had a wig on, so I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
So Alex is like getting hit with the Beethoven. He wants to kill himself, so he opens a window and leaps to his death. We cut to a camera falling into the ground. So
yeah, it's kind of a cool like, they just threw a camera off the roof.
Which I believe, I didn't look up the trivia, but I believe my old trivia that I knew is that's what they did, and they broke the camera.
Sounds cool. Even if it didn't happen, I like the story. Let me tell you something about drugging people that I've learned because I'm married into people that are like work in healthcare or whatever. If you want to drug someone and knock them out, you have to know their exact body weight. And if you want to put it in alcohol, you have to like subtract the effect of alcohol from the drugs you're putting in, because if you do that wrong, they are gonna die dead as hell. That's another movie trope from olden times that doesn't work anymore. Like, I'm gonna hit him in the head with a butt of a pistol and knock him out. It's like the only way you can knock him unconscious is to fracture his skull. That is how that works. They don't get up 15 minutes later like, my head hurts. No, they go to the hospital. So yeah, that's another thing about drugging people in movies. It's like, because I know people that know things about drugs and alcohol and stuff. It's like, yeah, that doesn't really happen in real life unless you're like the CIA and you have a doctor on staff that like, get him to stand on the welcome mat and we'll hide a scale under it so we know what he weighs, because otherwise you're just going to kill someone.
Now, Nathan, do you think because Julian is a weightlifter that when he lift up Alex, he knew what his weight was?
That could be. I think 30 stone, boss. I think 30 stone. I don't know what stone is, but that's what they say. So.
I think a stone is 15 pounds. Let me look it up.
How much I want to know how many stone I weigh, because I'm going to start telling people that when people ask, how much do you weigh now? It's like, 50 stone. And I just say it in a British accent for no reason.
14 pounds is a stone.
Okay.
So I'm like 20 stone or something around there.
I weigh like 260 now. So what is that?
It'd be like, let's see. Well, it'd be 280 would be 20 stone. So around 26 stone or something like that.
Okay. So that's what I'm going to tell people at work now. I like how when you get older and you lose weight, people are like, hey,
is everything okay?
You were planning on doing this, right? I'm like, yeah, why? He goes, okay, I didn't want to say anything in case you were dying of some terminal disease. Like, no, I'm not that old. How old do you think I am? Well, I don't dye my hair or my beard, so people assume, I don't know, anywhere from 40 to 60. It's like, come on, man. Really? Give me a break. Anyway, go on. Back to the movie.
We cut to the hospital. Alex is in traction, but not dead. I think even the voiceover is like, my dear brothers, I did not die, or something like that.
Yeah, it's always something cool. I've always wanted to talk like that in like the third person to people, like sharing my thoughts. But I can never do that because we have a lot of that brother. When you get into like unions, it's like, oh yeah, everyone's a brother. Hey brother, I want to tell you something. But to me, it sounds like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
It's like, hey brother. It's like, dude, what are we doing? Are we putting on a show now? What's gonna happen? Entertaining people?
It's a shoot, brother.
Yeah. Sure is.
If you want to know what that means. In wrestling parlance, a shoot means something is real. A work means something is fake. So when you say like "I hate you," that's a shoot, brother.
My favorite term, screw job.
Oh yeah, the Montreal screw job.
Yep, I love that. It's like, and everything's a screw job now.
um, well, my
I was
favorite is
talking to my investment guy and used that term. And he was telling me, "Yeah, did you ever think about this?" I was like, "That sounds like a screw job." It's like, what's that mean? It's like, what does it sound like? That means? I don't know. What are you telling me? It's like, I'm not going to invest in crypto as a long-term investment for my retirement. So yeah, the answer is no. Well, stocks aren't doing very well. It's like, true, they could fail, but I'm pretty sure stocks aren't all a Ponzi scheme. Oh, you know the term Ponzi scheme. I'm suddenly afraid of you. It's like, oh, wait, what? Okay, now I have a new investment.
Sorry, inverted triangle investment.
Yeah, that's it. I actually had to get a new investment guy because I use the term screw job and Ponzi scheme. I don't know. I don't like what you're implying. It's like, well, I don't like what you're implying, obviously. That's another story for another time.
My other favorite combination of that work and shoot stuff is somebody working themselves into a shoot.
Okay. I mean, I have a thought. Go ahead.
That's basically like it's basically like anxiety, where it's like you're around people and you start thinking for other people even though they're not saying that, and maybe they don't think that, but you just think that anyways, and you start getting mad.
Putting words in someone else's mouths, like,
yes.
Yeah, they're trying to fuck me.
So whether it's happening or not, so that's when people like create their own drama and they start to work themselves into a shoot. I hate you. Why? Because of my imagination of what you said.
Yeah. I know what you think about me. Like, you do? Based on what? Things I've said? No. My feelings. It's like, oh, here we go with the fucking feelings. Don't you know it's all about money and you can just nix all the feelings? My favorite character in season 3 Picard is the Vulcan criminal. The Vulcan mob boss who just uses logic. It's like, yeah, it's all crime. Yeah, everything is crime. Don't you know? Anyway.
Alex comes to, he's not dead. And then also, like, as he's starting to kind of moan a bit, and then like you hear kind of like moaning sounds, like, what the hell is that?
Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
And then like a doctor and nurse like emerge from from just like a bed next to her with like the covers, like with the curtains covering the bed.
And she's wearing like one of those old-fashioned nurse outfits.
Yeah,
so, like, her breasts are exposed. So
yeah, her huge breasts are just
huge
flopping around.
Oh, doctor, I think he's coming around.
It's the other time you can enjoy breasts in this movie.
Yeah, no one's like, oh, they're voluntarily. I mean, there's probably a power relationship involved.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not. This is early times. It was innocent. There's no patriarchy in action here.
We cut to like there's headlines of the Ministry of the Interior being disgraced because, hey, they basically forced this guy to kill himself, even though, so like that's what this treatment does. So you can't do that. Alex's mom and dad visit. Alex says they're not welcome.
Yeah.
And his dad explains what the government did to them. So like, oh, the government drove you to suicide. So like that was wrong and we're wrong. And we should be here to help you.
And we got your room back. No more lodgers.
Which in the book, it's like Joe gets like beat up and sent back to his hometown. Which is like, wait, did the government do that, or is that just the system working as intended? Like,
yeah,
because he gets like beat up by cops or something like that. But anyways,
yeah, you don't know if it's like the two guys or not.
Because that's another thing. It's like, oh, they're implementing this prison experiment, but they're also just hiring thugs from gangs to be like officers now, and that's the other problem. So now thugs are Now thugs just get to be cops beating up the other thugs in a different uniform that's now official. It's like, that's also a problem. That's not solving crime.
Yeah, the cops are just not wearing the codpiece and the bowler hat. Not the same thing.
And then there's a nurse. Then we cut to a nurse who's like feeding him fruit and like pancakes. And it's, I forget it because there's a dream early on where he's like in, I don't know, some Roman times or something like that, and like lady is just feeding him grapes, and that's like, there's three naked ladies and one of them's feeding grapes, and like, this is my dream. And so now this is like basically like his dream has become somewhat of a reality, just in a distorted way. It's like, the government's responsible for me, so now I get to reap the fruits of government responsibility. The Minister of the Interior shows up, or also I think does he do the joke here, or is it in the book where he calls him the Minister of the Inferior in his?
That's
like
in the book.
Okay. The nurse leaves and Alex is trying to feed himself, but he fails to, and it's very sad. But maybe he's doing it intentionally, and so the minister starts feeding him. And there's like this weird time every time he gets like a fork.
Alex
of food.
opens his mouth in a strange way because this guy's talking to him about serious things, and Alex just like he like pops a piece of steak in, and he just chews it up while the minister's talking, and then he just like again once his mouth's empty, he's like, and so it's like, yeah, I'm taking this in some way. You have an inkling like, oh, the old Alex is back.
Yeah.
It's like the old calculating, like, oh, I'm making moves, I'm thinking ahead,
I'm taking advantage of people.
It's like, yeah, you're gonna cut up my food, Mr. Government Minister, high and mighty, because I have value to you now, and I'm gonna exploit that value.
The minister basically tells him how like Frank was using him as a political pawn and was hoping that he would kill himself, like to advance their politics. So Alex is going to get like compensation. He's going to get a job of his choosing.
Yeah.
And basically Alex is like going to go along with all this because he's going to be able to take advantage of people again. That's what he loves to do.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like what makes Alex like the perfect politician, because it's like, well, I can't like kill and rape people anymore, but like I was just doing that because that's what I wanted. But now I can play politics and I can get what I want by just talking to people. And that's like, that's the next game.
Yeah.
Just manipulating people without violence. That's a sweeter reward. Like they thought they did this under their own free will. I didn't force it upon them. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have no more ultra violence. People like will voluntarily, like they'll come along with me, as long as I'm compelling enough.
We get music playing. I think this might be Beethoven. I'm not sure, because that would be the thing that like that would be the clue that like, oh, the treatment's become undone. I think I missed the part in between where they're like a psychiatrist shows up.
Yeah, Gloria Rubinstein shows up.
Oh, okay.
He's like showing him pictures of like a guy coming out of a window, like leaving a window, and there's a woman laying in bed naked, but it's like a hand drawing.
Yeah.
And she's like, tell me what you think when you see this picture. And he's like, oh, sorry, love. No time for the old in out. Got to get back before your husband comes on. Like, so you can tell like and there's another picture of a guy and it's like, I'd like to knock your blocks off. And, it's so it's like, oh, yeah, Alex is thinking in old patterns again.
Yeah, and he's not being sick.
Yeah, he's not
getting sick from
belching and, and he seems happy. He seems genuinely happy because she's happy. He's happy. He's saying horrible things. It's like,
yeah.
And she's like, good.
It's like,
good.
you did great. It's like, you're a psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't know, like, it's like what cured him is like, is him committing suicide what cured him? Did they inject him with drugs? It was this little bit of deprogramming a part of it. Like, you never know. So
yeah, you don't know. I'm assuming they injected him with drugs when he came in there, because there was a nurse and a doctor, just waiting by the bedside, vigorously humping while they were waiting for Alex, come out of it. So I assume like, oh no, it was all hands on deck, and they were trying to make this, discredit this Ludovico technique because people in the opposition were making him look bad.
Yeah.
So
Also, yeah, also the minister mentions that like Frank's been taken care of, which basically means they sent the cops after him and beat him to death, probably, or something.
Yeah. Or they paid the strong man like $100 more just to kill him. Hey, what? You're getting $500 a week for watching this guy. What if we gave you 600 quid for you to chuck him down the stairs? And being a pop bottle glass muscle man, he's like, sure, not realizing that last $600 is like, well, that's the goose that laid the golden egg is now dead. I don't know if that's what happened. That's what I had.
We get music plays. I think it's Beethoven. The media shows up. They're like, shooting pictures, and Alex is like smiling, and he's like getting pictures of the minister. Up
to the camera and his cat.
Here, Alex dreams of sex. Here, it looks more like consensual sex, but in the book, it says it's basically just raping a woman instead of in front of people just applauding him.
Yeah.
So
everyone's like, it looks like a scene from Caligula, which is a movie this guy was later in.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's happy. And then it just kind of like stills, like the scene freezes, and he was like, I was cured, all right, and it's like, oh yeah, he's back to being a psycho.
And credits.
And then credits.
On like colored cards, like red and green, whatever. So
one of the best movies you'll ever see, folks.
And one of the weirdest.
Yeah, I mean, I love this.
One of the most uncomfortable. Don't watch this with your family.
Yeah, this isn't one to
watch this like it's pornography.
Yeah, this isn't one to get the family around and watch. I've never watched this with my son, even though he's been an adult for, next Friday he'll be 21. So I've never watched this with him, and I never will, because it's like, this is a solitary experience movie. But I recommend everyone watch it. But it's not like Die Hard, where it's like, oh, the family's here, it's Christmas, let's watch this violent movie. It's like, no, this isn't the movie to watch. This is more of a Thanksgiving movie.
Oh, this is the first time I realized, because you have like the famous poster where he's like holding the knife, and I thought like the eyeball was like some sort of like dangly bit that like treasure that hung off the knife. I didn't realize it was his cuff.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah.
No.
It's always been my dream, if I ever had a custom-made suit, because someday I will have like a fancy suit, like an Armani, a Hugo or something, and I want the eyeball cufflinks. Not the bloody ones, but just the eyeballs. So when people ask me, I was like, you ever seen a Clockwork Orange? And they'll know, like, oh, this guy's a weirdo. This guy paid $5,000 for a suit with and he's got like eyeball cufflinks. And I mean the fancy ones that actually link through, where there's no buttons on the suit. The really expensive ones that I've never had. So you spend as much as on your HVAC tools as I would spend on a fancy suit, which I never have. Because, by the way, the suits I bought 2 years ago, which weren't horribly expensive, but they weren't cheap, I wear them now. I look like Tom Hanks in Big when he goes back to the kid. It's like, oh, and I already found out it's like, oh, we can't retailer them that many sizes small. So it's like, well, I'm just going to eat Ben and Jerry's again until I can fit these. I want to die when I'm 55. I want to die right before I get my pension. It's always satisfying for everyone. Right, honey?
Yeah. So yeah, again, another Stanley Kubrick classic, and
my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie. Unfortunately, it's always the one I come back to.
I'm Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah. Also, an excellent movie.
Yeah, I mean, almost all his movies are excellent, and they're like the tentpole for the genre. It's like Dr. Strangelove, one of the best comedies of all time. Spartacus. I actually never seen that, but probably one of the best movies of its time. It won the Oscar for Best Picture. Yeah. Like Full Metal Jacket, one of the best war movies ever made. Yep.
Hey, Spartacus is the one I use as an example at work when I'm always trying to mess with my bosses. Is like, you're waiting for that I am Spartacus moment. Never gonna happen, dude. It's a movie. It's designed to play with your emotions. Everyone here is out for themselves, and that's when people drive away from me in their car, like, evil man. It's or they don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know which.
What's Spartacus?
I'm talking about. But
It's a movie from the 60s. I think it's 2000 or 2001 Space Odyssey, one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. So,
absolutely, love that
yeah.
movie.
Shining, one of the best Stephen King adaptations and horror movies of all time. So yeah, everything he makes is
my wife loved that movie.
everything he makes was an all-time movie, and he really didn't make, for as long as his career was, he didn't make a lot of movies for as long as his career was.
No,
So
actually, this was his fastest turnaround between movies. Was 2001 to Clockwork Orange.
yeah.
3 years. It was like for Kubrick, that's like light speed. That's like filming like 2 superhero movies at the same time. It's like that's this is that for Kubrick.
I never saw his like early stuff. That one was like stuff where it's like Killer's Kiss and stuff like that, where it's like 50s gangster movies or whatever that was. Like I've never seen
great.
those. Paths of Glory is really good. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the World War I movie. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I've seen them all. I mean, we used to have like IFC, Criterion.
Yeah.
Remember when we were doing that? When it was like, we're going to be real film assholes.
Yeah.
I mean, we found a lot of weird movies that we liked, but we didn't like them the same way like serious aficionados like them. Well, I enjoy this movie too. However, I don't have like all these numbers after my name that make it official. So, because I also like Time Bandits and Life of Brian. I don't know where I fit in this universe.
We're sending a probe to space containing the supercut of the scenes from the imperfect collection of movies that is the Verhoeven Effect. I know this movie doesn't really fit into our thing, but it's a thing we're doing, so that we're not going to explain until later. You have one scene to choose from this movie. Nathan, what movie are we sending in space?
When we see
from this movie.
When we see Billy Boy at the what was it, the casino?
Derelict Casino.
Derelict Casino perfectly describes this movie. It's like there's violence going on, horrible violence. It's like, oh, are the Droogs here to stop a rape? No, they're here to commit worse violence.
And if the lady hung around, they probably would have raped her too.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but we know that would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't need to say that because that's how this universe
That's
works.
what the aliens are going to find out about humanity.
And the reason I'm basing that on, why I say that is because, why the aliens would base that, because Kubrick told Malcolm McDowell, this is how I want you to be. The guy who came on set saw that scene and laughed, is like, that's Alex DeLarge. And I'm going to assume that Kubrick is smarter than me. So, which I always assume when I'm watching his movies, like, this guy's smarter than me. I'm just going to enjoy this. But I always watch his movies over and over and over again. There is not a Stanley Kubrick movie made that I don't have on DVD. I can't say that about anyone else, not even David Lynch. I don't have all his movies on DVD. I literally have everything Kubrick did on DVD. Yep.
I've never seen this.
Yeah. Let's see. How could I describe? Considering what Nicolas Cage is today, you're going to love it. Considering what Nicolas Cage was at the time that came out, it's going to seem really confusing.
What's weird is like this isn't a Criterion Collection, which is a lot of David Lynch movies are. This is Wild at Heart for those audio listeners. This is so there's like a movie house that does a lot of kitschy stuff that's called Shout Factory. Yeah. And so this is like Shout Factory's like premier brand.
Oh, Shout Factory did Wild at Heart? Oh shit. Okay. Cool. I can tell you why Wild at Heart is not Criterion, because it does not meet the what would I say, like
the criteria.
Well, I wasn't going to say criteria, but kind of the faux intellectual status that you have to have for some criteria, because some of that Criterion stuff like really is high-minded in my this is all Nathan's opinion, take it for what it's worth, folks. Some of that Criterion stuff is like, it's like, oh, it's as high-minded as it thinks it is. Like the RoboCop Criterion is like absolutely perfect. I know that's not the Criterion everyone's thinking of, but yeah, a lot of that other Criterion stuff is like, oh, you're just blowing out your own ass here. This isn't as good as you think it is. But I can tell you, Wild at Heart, like there's a reason it didn't meet that bar, but it's still a great movie.
Yeah, I almost just got it because we were doing Blue Velvet, and I'd seen the David Lynch version of Wicked Games, and it had just imagery from the movie, and I was like, Okay, well, some of this is also from Blue Velvet, but this also just feeds into all of David Lynch's stuff, and it's the one thing I haven't seen, where it's like all this imagery came from also this movie too. So I just had to get it for that, you know. And you know, crazy Nick Cage, so you know, and Laura Dern, so
it's great. I mean, for me, it's great. I understand why other people aren't going to like it, but yeah.
But also David Lynch is just weird about his movies being released on any format other than like a roll of film. So
yeah. If it was up to David Lynch, like I'd have 2 giant spools behind me, some kind of projector, which it's like actually might make sense. I would do that with his movies because I know a lot of people bitch because there wasn't like track listings on his movie.
Yeah,
it's like, well, you can always pause if you got to take a leak, but you can't like track ahead and back, and people were mad about that. It's like, no, that makes sense. David Lynch is a background movie. You're either sucked into it or you're not going to get it. So why would you put track links in it? Me, I'm sucked into it. You might not get it. I don't know. It depends on who you are as a viewer. David Lynch is not a movie to build tiger tracks to. All David Lynch movies, you're not building tiger tracks to those. Guardians are, superhero movies, I can build tiger tracks all day.
Well, if you like what you heard, how can you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. There you can, or whatever platform you're listening on, you can rate us. You can rate us whatever you want. The only thing the algorithm listens to, remember, you control the algorithm doesn't control you. So give us the highest rating just for no reason other than put us out there.
Look, we're trying, folks. I realize I know what kind of low effort podcasting this is. I'm not bullshitting anyone here. But we are trying to do something different. So please say something good about us. Because if you don't like what I'm doing and you hate me, fuck you. I don't care. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing after 15 years of this nonsense. Oh, no. Somebody doesn't like what I'm doing. I better change. I better put more effort into this. Like, no.
We have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support us at monthly stipend, either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. Watch both this and that podcast live and unedited. And you can also get t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/greedfactory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.